Hi there, I'm Vincent Bos, and I'm a life coach, relationship coach, and breakup coach. You can change the language of this podcast in the YouTube video settings. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing texting your ex after months apart. I provide audio coaching for breakup recovery, trying to get an ex back, attracting someone new, and life coaching. Visit www.dateme.tips for more details. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. Subscribe to my weekly support emails. The link is in the description. So now let's get back into today's podcast, and today we are discussing texting your ex after months apart. So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, texting them can be tricky and often not a good idea. In today's podcast, I'm discussing 3 points to consider regarding texting your ex after months apart. So let's get straight into this, and point number 1 is don't confuse things. Now let me know in the comments if you feel confused about texting your ex. Let me know in the comments and let's see what the community thinks. And point number 1 is don't confuse things. And when I say that, I mean don't confuse necessary with unnecessary contact. Now, at the time of a breakup, things can be very, very raw indeed. Emotions are running high, and it's understandable, but you are going to be thinking to yourself, right, I need to say this to my ex. I didn't say this at the time. And there can be a whole spectrum of reasons as for why you might reach out to your dumper in a way that maybe you look back and you realize, okay, that wasn't great, that wasn't ideal, but you know the breakup was very fresh and emotions, as I've said, were running high, and it was difficult to know what was what and what this meant and what that meant, and did they understand this and that. That is somewhat understandable. Listen, it's not ideal. You know, if you're going to go through the perfect breakup, which nobody can really, but if you were to try to, then as soon as the breakup took place, you wouldn't be reaching out to your dumper most of the time. But there are instances where you have to, and that is what we refer to as necessary contact. So during the breakup process itself and beyond, if there is a necessary reason for you to reach out to your ex, then you must do that. I like to use the example of if you have left your work laptop at their house, then obviously you need to reach out. You need your work laptop back. But of course, that is not the only example. There is an almost infinite amount of possibilities. Maybe, for instance, they had some mail delivered to your house, and you're thinking, well, do I let them know about this? Yeah, you know, you need to be a good human being and let them know that they have got some post at your house, and you just need to be asking about whether or not there needs to be some type of collection arranged. Now, if you believe that something that is yours has been delivered to your ex, then exactly the same as well. You might need to be making contact. If they haven't reached out to you, maybe they have not got as good a manners as you, and obviously, sadly, they were the dumper. Maybe things are up in the air in their mindset. But if you know it's there, then you've got, every right to ask for something which was yours to be given back to you. That could be deemed as necessary. What is unnecessary is you begging, pleading, reasoning, let alone things such as saying, hey, did you see what was on TV last night? I mean, that is clearly unnecessary, but also the begging, the pleading, the reasoning, that's also unnecessary. And that's where people get confused, because they think, well, no, I'm just trying to get my ex back. But once the breakup has been settled, as I've already said, in the days or weeks following, it's not ideal, but somewhat understandable that dumpies are probably going to be reaching out and doing some begging. It's what reality is like. It's not perfect, it's not ideal, but it's probably going to happen. That isn't going to help you. But now when we look further down the line, things become even more pronounced. Things become even more important, because certainly from your ex's perspective, their mindset has probably stabilized. Now, you might not be feeling much better at all months and months down the line, or perhaps you yourself do feel somewhat calmer, and that is sometimes why you might trick yourself into thinking, actually, I now feel more stable-minded. This is a good opportunity for me to reach out to my ex and persuade them that we should get back together. Sadly, that is not likely to help. That is not likely to work. Now, there is no 100% guaranteed way to get your ex back. Nothing works 100% of the time, and nothing fails 100% of the time. But generally speaking, if you have been dumped, you should never contact your ex again, unless they contact you first, unless it is for a necessary reason. And this does still play out months and months down the line. Now, maybe, for instance, many months down the line, you receive some post that belongs to your ex, as we've already described that situation. Now, you might be asking yourself, should I then reach out to them and say, hey, I've got your mail? Well, I would suggest you use your common sense once we're many months down the line. Now, I'm certainly not suggesting you open it, but if you can have a very good idea that it's literally junk mail, then if you contact your ex and say, hey, I've got your post, I've got some mail for you, and you actually do arrange to meet up and they collect it and they realise instantly it's junk mail, they are not going to be happy because they're going to know what your game is, the game of just trying to talk to them. So I'm not suggesting you open it, but use your common sense. Does this look important? Does it look serious? Does it look necessary? And I think that's the problem. When we go months and months down the line, things which should become clearer in your mind almost become less clear. At the time of a breakup and a few weeks beyond, everything is so here, there and everywhere in your mind and their mind, things can get confusing, things can get blurred. But months down the line, you are much more likely to know full well whether you should be doing this or not. And if it's unnecessary, it is not likely to help you. So try and use your common sense. Try and think with a clear mind. Try and look at things and say to yourself, right, is this a necessary reason or an unnecessary reason that I want to reach out to my dumper? And if it's unnecessary, you shouldn't be doing it. So now let's get into point number 2 and the second point of today's podcast. Please like and hype this video. If you like my content, subscribe to the channel to keep updated. And point number 2 is major events. So today we're speaking about texting your ex after months apart and what you should be considering if and when you're on the verge of reaching out to your dumper. Now, when we go beyond those first few weeks or even first couple of months or so, we are much more likely to be bumping into major events. This could be their birthday. It could be New Year's Eve. It might be Christmas or any other religious or significant holiday that you and them celebrate. So what do? You haven't spoke to your ex in 5, 6, 7 months. And now it's their birthday. Now it's New Year's Eve. Do you wish them a happy new year? Do you say happy birthday? Well, I have a little rule for you to follow. And I believe it is the best advice I can give you in this regard to give you that opportunity to reattract your ex if there is a chance right now, but also not to be ruining things if you shouldn't be making that move. My suggestion is that you ask yourself a question. Have me and my ex had a positive conversation within the last month? Now, this doesn't mean you've got back together. It just means that you've had a positive interaction. Now, ideally, this is going to have been started by them. As in, maybe they sent you a text. Maybe you hadn't heard from your ex in 5 months. Suddenly, out of nowhere, they reach out and text you. It didn't technically go anywhere. Maybe you're even questioning if you were breadcrumbed. But the fact is, you exchanged a few nice texts. They instigated it. And therefore, you can say to yourself, yes, in the last month, I have received contact from my dumper. We have had a positive interaction. Now, possibly they didn't reach out to you. I mean, I'm hoping that you haven't reached out to them, because if you have, I'm sorry, but I can't count that. Even if they were polite, even if you think it was positive, I don't think it is something you can go on to count with what I'm saying here. So if they reach out, yes, but also if you happen to randomly bump into each other, or maybe you knew you were going to see each other, perhaps you have children together, maybe you work together, but you can honestly say there was a particular interaction in the last 4 or 5 weeks which went really well. So either they reach out, or maybe you had to see each other, but it did go well. If you reached out and they were just polite, I don't know if we can really count that. But if you do believe that you fall into that category of this positive interaction within the last 4 or 5 weeks, then I do think you should reach out to your dumper on a major event and send them a text. This doesn't mean you buy them a card. It certainly doesn't mean you buy them a present. But if you have had a good interaction in the last few weeks, I believe it would seem somewhat odd if you didn't recognize this major day on the calendar. So for instance, if it was their birthday that we're talking about here, and you've had this chat because they sent you a text, a few texts back and forth, it went well a few weeks ago, I think that you could send them a text saying happy birthday. Now, I'm not suggesting you do any more than that, unless they reply and grow the conversation, but I think if you don't, it might seem kind of odd. They might be thinking, well, I reached out to my dumpy a few weeks ago, it went kind of well, and they haven't even said happy birthday. So in that regard, I believe you could do that. Now, what happens if you had a good interaction, but it was 3 months ago? So, for instance, your relationship ended, say, 9 months ago, and 3 months ago, your ex reached out, nice interaction, but you've heard nothing since. And now it's their birthday 3 months later. In my opinion, you don't send a text in this regard. The reason being is that sadly, whatever there may have been a few months ago didn't grow. It's not something which caught fire and turned into the flames of passion. It sadly didn't work out that way, and hence I would have in my mind roughly a month or so as the cap for how long this good interaction needed to have been. And if it was before that, then sadly I don't think you should reach out. Now, if you would like advice and support about how to try and increase the chance of one day getting your ex back, then you may want to consider my audio coaching service, where me and you can speak one-on-one about your unique specific situation. This is the best and diamond level of support that I can provide. Go to my website www.dateme.tips for more information about how I can become your coach and your teammate via my audio coaching service. Talking about your feelings can also improve your mental health. It helps prevent the buildup of negative emotions, which can lead to stress, anxiety, depression, and even physical health issues. Speak your heart to free your mind. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast. If you feel that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description. And point number 3 is hit and hope rarely works. Now, if you feel that this podcast could help others, please share it in breakup communities, groups, and servers. Let's help as many people as possible. And point number 3, as I said, is hit and hopes rarely work. And hit and hopes are where, as a dumpy, we go against all advice and we just think, I'm just going to send a text out. I'm just going to go fishing. I'm just going to send something out and see what happens. Now, I'm never going to say that something definitely won't work. But what I will say is that doing something like this is probably 90-95% of the time going to fail in getting your ex back. It doesn't mean they won't reply. It doesn't mean you might not even have a nice little interaction. But the problem is you don't know why they are responding. You don't know why you've got that nice message back. Is it because they really miss you? Or is it because they're just being polite? Is it because they're worried about you? Is it because they feel they owe you that response? You don't know. Whereas if they reach out to you, you know they have to be fundamentally missing you. That's why they've done it. So not only do you have that problem of wondering, what does it even mean if they do reply? But sadly, lots of dumpers won't even respond. You might even find out that after trying to do this, you are then blocked. So reaching out with a hit and hope very rarely works, and I only very rarely will ever suggest it. I'm going to let you know an example of when I have suggested it in the past. Like I said, very, very rare, very unlikely that you are going to fit into this category. But in this regard, where I did actually suggest trying a hit and hope, we had a situation where we had a dumper and a dumpy, And the dumpy, in essence, had their relationship ended, their heart broken, and they knew that their ex-dumper was going to be moving country in a few months' time. So the breakup has taken place, and yet they know that their dumper is going to be moving country in a few months' time. So the situation we see here is that once their ex moves to a different country, the chances of reconnecting fall almost through the floor. Okay, they're almost as impossible as it could possibly be. You know, I will never say never, but it's very, very unlikely. And hence, I said to this person that they, in my opinion, should try a hit and hope text if they have not heard from their dumper and they knew that their ex was going to be moving to this new country within a month or so. That, I believe, is when they should send the text. And the reason I said that is because if the dumper did reply, and if they were able to try and grow something, there needs to be some time with them both in the same country to try and reconnect and figure out what on earth they're going to do with this situation of the dumper moving country. Whereas if they sent that text on the day they were leaving, even if it went well during that text message, it's almost too late. Similarly, if the dumpy sent the message too soon, we wouldn't be able to see if the dumper would have done it off their own accord, which is obviously the best option. So the sweet spot, as I saw it, was to wait around a month or so before the dumper, was going to move country. That is what I believe was the sweet spot for the dumpy to send the hit and hope text. And what we see here is just one example of the rarity of when I would actually suggest doing this. It's not likely at all, because sadly it very rarely works. But as I'm sure you can tell by that scenario, there's nothing to lose by that point. What is there to lose? Whereas you are probably listening and you don't have an ex who's about to move country, and you have a lot more to lose. Because if you hold out and maintain my version of a no contact rule, you never know. Your ex-dumper might reach out to you 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18 months down the line. I'm not saying you should wait for them, but you never know when they might reach out. And hence, if you jump the gun with a hit and hope text, you might end up getting blocked. They might be really annoyed. And hence, you don't know what's around that corner. So generally speaking, I will not suggest it, but very occasionally, after months and months of no contact, I might suggest a hit and hope.